Hello, you're listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club, and you're most welcome.
Well, it's Friday, it's 5 to 5, and that means that the doors to the Rambling Club are open once again. Hello, everybody. My name's Paul Carmichael.
And I'm Alan Lear.
And we've been having some trouble this week, haven't we, Alan? Because with Tony being absent, we've been left in charge of Molly. Molly is, of course, Tony's cat, who is of an interesting disposition, isn't she?
Well, she's of a fairly average disposition for a cat, that being an attitude somewhere between a genocidal maniac and the world's most bored man.
She can be a little bit tricksy, can't she? But hopefully, well, she's not around at the moment, so I think we're going to get away with a little bit of a peaceful time at least, so we should be all right. But, there's the door. Do you want to do the honours, Al, and see who it is? Not expecting anyone.
Yes, certainly. I'll just take my antihistamines for Molly's hairballs as I trip over the carpet. Hello, can I help you?
Hello, is this your cat? It's holding, it's scratching. Get off the... No! Is that your cat? Your cat has been worrying my sheep. One of them has been worried almost to death. The others are having nervous breakdowns all around the farm. My name is David Archer, and I'm here to tell you if you don't call your cat off, I will sue you to the ends of the earth. Do you understand?
Mr. Archer, I do apologise. We have had a few problems with Molly, haven't we, Alan?
We're going to have to send her to the pet psychiatrist again, as well as sending all your anxiety-ridden sheep there by the sound of it.
Good. Well, at least you do something about it, because otherwise, I am afraid I'm going to have to do some sort of, caticide. Do you understand?
We do understand, absolutely. Well, maybe we could make amends with this by... Hold on a moment. Alan, I think I recognise who's disguised behind that barber jacket. Is that Tim Bentinck?
Well, you've called me out. I thought I could disguise myself with this barber jacket, but you've got me. Curses.
Oh, Tim, will you... Well, why not come into the shed and we'll hope Molly doesn't run amok. Come in and make yourself at home, please.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
great shed. Oh, yeah. Top shedding.
It's a good shed, isn't it? We are rather proud of it. Well, I'm afraid, listen, Tony's not here at the moment. He's still in the loo, 50th glorious week. But as you're here to try and make amends for Molly's terrible behaviour, what Alan and I normally do around this time on a Friday is we give the old bingo machine a bit of a whirl and, well, we see where we end up and we go for a bit of a ramble. I don't suppose you'd like to maybe come along with us, would you?
Sounds fantastic, absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely on for a walk.
Oh, brilliant. Well, in that case, let's give the machine a whirl and see where we end up. Okay. Off we go.
Tony's enchanted bingo machine. A curious contraption of cogs, levers, and glowing buttons that hums with ominous energy. This machine generates 3 completely random numbers. These numbers are fed directly into the Dewey Decimal System, the arcane reference system by which books and their contents are categorized. In this way, the bingo machine conjures from thin air a topic of conversation so enthralling, so wildly unexpected, that it leaves the members of the Rambling Club both bewildered and vaguely excited. And thus, another evening is saved from the brink of boredom, thanks to Tony's marvellous, possibly haunted and entirely inexplicable bingo machine.
Well, here we are in the great outdoors with our guest president, Tim Bentinck, ready to begin our first ramble this week. And the numbers selected by the machine are...
9, 1. 9.
919, 919. And a quick tap on the top of the machine reveals that the subject is... Other areas. Now then, we're discussing here, the general subject is to do with geography. geography, history, travel. So other areas. So whatever area you're thinking of, maybe the other area. I watched a wonderful program last night, which you've probably both seen, which is Gone Fishing, which Bob Mortimer does with.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've only just discovered it.
Oh, mate, I tell you, it was the thing that when I first started watching it and they got out their pill boxes, comparing what pills they all had to take every day. Yeah. And I thought, God, you poor old sods, that's awful, isn't it, getting old? And here I am now with a pill box. Yes. And all the conversations that you have, somebody told me once you hit 70, the only conversation you have with your friends is the organ recital. Which is everyone talking about their various ailments. And I thought, no, that's not going to happen to me. Nope, that's exactly it. So how many pills do you take a day? Well, I got this, I got that, I got so. I've got quite a lot of vitamin pills. And it's just...
I'm suddenly being told by my wife, you need to take all these supplements. Magnesium is the latest one. I don't know what for, but the reason I thought of it was the one that I watched last night. They were in the Lake District, which is where I spent so many childhood holidays. If we think back to childhood, where do you go in terms of the places that you travelled to that really sort of gave you inspiration and made you maybe want to travel more?
Well, in terms of, I was brought up in the countryside, which is, quite good for playing a countryman for 42 years. I was brought up near a town called Berkhamsted, near a little village called Potton End. Oh. And so my adventures were, the child of the 50s, every evening coming back from school, go after on the bicycle with my mate. And there was a golf course nearby, and kind of common land. And we were wild and free. And we used to annoy the golfers by getting in the way and shooting each other with, cap guns and things like that. And there was a place nearby where they had, before the First World War, they dug all these trenches, practice trenches, which, for a kid is absolutely fantastic because you can turn them into dens. So we were never short of adventure and imagination. In terms of holidays, we used to go to stay with cousins who lived in Calabria in the south of Italy. And this was in the 60s, and they literally, I don't know if they had electricity, but I didn't see it. It was all, gas lamps and horses and swimming in the sea, swimming horses in the sea and all that. It was fantastically adventurous. So that to me was as a child, was just pure bliss, really. So I'm sort of, always been an outdoors type.
Yeah. My happiest sort of memories from that time of my life were my uncle David, bizarrely enough, had a farm over in Wales, and we would go there every single year. And I thought it was the most wonderful thing, but I realised that my enthusiasm turned me into free labour, and we always went during lambing. And so by the age of about 7, I was quite used to the whole thing of actually getting there and pulling a lamb out of a sheep and being taught this wonderful technique once, which I may have mentioned before, but when a lamb was born, and I thought, oh, that one's dead. And he said, pick it up by its back legs. Yeah. So I did. And then he said, just lasso it around your head as hard as you can and keep going and keep going. And then he said, drop. Boom. And the thing immediately woke up.
Down to life. I do know that, actually. And I did suggest it once when we were lambing in the Archers, and they said, no, we'd be sued. The idea of swinging a lamb around your head, the complaints would flood in.
Yes.
I actually once suggested to, what's that, Spring Watch? On Spring Watch, and they do lambing.
Yeah.
I said, wouldn't it be nice to have a kind of a comparison of the real thing with the art, with the studio version of it, which is done with yogurt, and there's a kind of a lump of wood wrapped in a towel, which is soaked in water, and then you drop that on some 1/4-inch tape, because there's still a lot of old 1/4-inch tape from the days when we used to record on tape, and that's used for walking, for the walking effects.
Oh, right, yeah.
On straw and things like that, and also for when you're lambing. So there's a mixture of what's being played on in grams, as they say, which is on now MP3s, which is the sounds of the whatever the lamb or the sheep or the cow, whatever it is having with. In labour, and then you do all the thing, come on girl, and then yogurt would be used to make the squelchy sound. And then you'd go, there, and then you'd drop this log onto the straw, thonk, and then they'd be And there you are. Lo and behold, one lamb. And it's incredibly convincing. It sounds really good. And I thought it'd be really nice fun to juxtapose that with the real thing, in the same time. But it hasn't happened yet. It doesn't happen yet. You never know.
So at some point it may well do.
I love all that stuff about how the Foleys are made. There's a wonderful story of Spike Milligan, who of course used to really stretch the Foley artists with the sound effects for the Goon Show. And one week they were trying to get a sound effect for somebody being hit in the face with a sock full of custard, and they couldn't get the sound right in Spike's imagination. So in the end, he ran down to the canteen and asked the woman there to prepare him a bowl of custard, which she lovingly did. Apparently, there's a lovely bowl of custard with a little bit of nutmeg or something sprinkled on it, and she gave it to him. And in front of her face, he took his sock off his foot, filled it with the custard, and just pelted the wall with it. It all sounded wrong, apparently.
Fantastic. Good old Spike.
Yeah. As a writer, because you do a fair bit of travel writing, don't you, Tim?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, was that what was that like for you as a creative process? Did you find it to be a creative process, or was it more of a factual process?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is that I'd never done it before. Shall I tell you the way that happened?
Oh, yeah, please, yeah.
There's a guy called Frank Barrett, who was the travel editor of the Mail on Sunday, and he saw me once on University Challenge The Professionals. And I just happened to get lucky. I was captain, and I happened to get lucky. I just happened to know almost all the answers, because they weren't as difficult as real University Challenge ones. And he just kept firing these things that I knew the answers to. So I came across as this, like a genius, really. Anyway, that happened, and it went out. And I got this email from Frank Barrett saying, I've seen you on University Challenge. You're a good quizzer. Would you like to be on the annual journalists' Irish pub quiz, which happens once a year in a pub? And it's all the journos, all the journalists all have a go at each other. And Frank was really good quizzer, and he always won, and he wanted to make sure that he won. So anyway, he invited me on, and we were going through it, and we got to the end, and it was sport, and it was neck and neck with, the Times or something, and he was desperate to win. And there's this one question, which is, what animal features on the top of the Calcutta Cup, which is the annual England-Scotland rugby match? And I happened to know that it was an elephant, right? I knew that it was an elephant. I said, it's an elephant. He said, it's not, it's a tiger. I said, no, it's an elephant. He said, it's a tiger. I said, no, Frank, do you want to win this? Yes. It's an elephant. And he went, and he wrote down elephant. It was an elephant. We won. And then he said to me, okay, Tim, he said, can you write? I said, yes. He said, where would you like to go in the world? And that started this incredible adventure that my wife and I had for the next sort of something like 6 or 7 years, where we would go to, we went everywhere. We went to Australia, Tasmania, where I was born. Went to America. We went to the Cayman Islands. I learned to scuba dive on my 60th birthday in the Cayman Islands. We had these fantastic adventures. And then when poor old Frank he ended up losing his job there, and that was the end of the job. So now Judy and I sit in front of the telly, rather kind of watching travel programs, going, we used to do that. And everything was first class everywhere. And of course, whenever you went to somewhere where, you didn't pay for a thing, you went to some massive hotel, like a 6-star hotel in Tokyo. There was a 6-star hotel in Tokyo. Nothing paid for. And of course, they go out of their way to treat you like a god, because they want you to write a good bit of blurb for them, it's advertising for them. So you were treated like a star. So it was the best job I ever had in my life. And it's all gone now. It's all in the past. You only have memories and photographs. That's it.
What about now? So do you still travel, though, just for the fun of it, when you can?
So, nothing like so much as we used to. No. I mean, we have a holiday once a year, and that's it. But in terms of being adventurous and the Wanderlust and all of that, not really anymore.
No. Yeah, I think one of the most important things my wife more than I thought when we had children was the importance of introducing them to other cultures and just getting them out there. And it's that old thing, isn't it, that travel broadens the mind. But I will remember all my life when we went to a tour around the battlefields of the First World War.
Oh, yeah.
And taking my son, Harry, who was then, I think he was 14, who's always been interested in military history. And we went to where the trenches were. And he asked the guide, whereabouts was no man's land? And he said, okay, you stay here. And then he said to me, you start walking and I'll say stop. And I walked, but only for about less than 20 meters. And he said, stop. Wow. And he said, right, your dad's on the German front line. You're on the British front line. And realizing it was that close, I think it had such a profound effect on him.
I know. We did the same thing. I took the boys to, I've got two sons, and we took them to where my great uncle Henry fell at the Battle of the Somme. And from he didn't die straight away. He was mortally injured, and he died some weeks later, and he wrote a diary. So he wrote about the battle and where he was when he was shot. And I then went to regimental records and found out where it would have been that he was. And anyway, we worked out from Google Maps and things exactly where it was that he would have fallen. And so we went there and, photographed it. And then we walked up the road like you did. We walked up the road, something like 10-minute walk, and there was a cemetery, which was a vast cemetery, and that was just for that one day's advance. And that brought it home. And I remember both the boys being in tears when they saw the number of headstones there, just for that one advance. It brings it home, the scale, didn't it?
It really does. That cemetery, it could have been the same on it. It was huge. And because we were just on a coach going from place to place to place. And we were told, if you want to walk through the cemetery, we're going to stop for 45 minutes, but down to the bottom and back. And it took 45 minutes without stopping, just passing thousands and thousands of these white graves. It really did bring it home. It was, yeah.
Yeah, so that wasn't the great fun adventure for us. No, that wasn't a kind of a massive laugh. But it was salutary and educational, and a good thing to do. The other thing that's really good thing extraordinary to do is to look at the Normandy beaches, which I did with Judy many years ago, and just the scale of it. Because in your imagination, you have a picture of the idea of all the landing boats and everything, and the German guns and everything, and it's like one beach, but it's not one beach. It goes on and on and on and on for mile after mile after mile after mile, and that brought it home again. The scale of the whole thing, terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
this comedy program, isn't it?
yeah. Well, have anybody been to any funny destination?
Funny destination. What about Disneyland?
I did go to a comic museum in Brussels, as I recall. That was fascinating, actually, just to get a real sense of the history of that sort of thing. But I think I was too interested in trying to work out where they shot location for Secret Army or something like that to really think of anything else. Well, here we are, a second location and a second set of numbers, and those numbers are
0, 2, 8.
028. 028. And that means that the second subject is reading. Use of other information media. Not sure what the other use of other information media is, but reading. Right, okay. What are we reading at the moment?
Oh, blimey. Well, I just needed some escapism, so I was reading a kind of a spy thriller rubbish, and then I thought, well, I'm wasting my life here because I know what's going to happen. He's going to survive because there's another book after it, so there was no tension. And then I thought, come on, Tim, stop reading. I mean, my tastes are very varied and they go off into real schlock nonsense, but then I become serious. So anyway, the other day I thought, no, I'm going to read Dickens. Because recently I did the audiobook of Oliver Twist and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I'd forgotten what a wonderful, wonderful writer he was. And it was great. It's great for an audiobook, really, because of all these people, Mr. Bumble, and all that, all these political accents you can do. And I loved reading it. And it was like watching a film. There's this bit where Oliver comes to London and he walks through London with the Artful Dodger, and he describes the smells and the sounds as they walk through the markets in the morning as everyone's coming to, and it's so vividly written, and it's like watching a movie. It is the 19th century equivalent of a movie. It's absolutely brilliant. So I thought, right, I'm going to read something I've never read before. I know I'll download Nicholas Nickleby on the Kindle, and it was 54p. I thought that's a very good bargain.
Yes.
So there I was. Went to bed. I thought, I always read for a quarter of an hour or so to get to sleep, and I was so bored. Within seconds, I go, oh God Almighty, this is tendentious nonsense. What's going on here? And I thought, well. So I think I've got to page 5, and somebody will tell me, no, Tim, stick with it. It becomes absolutely wonderful. Because I'd heard somebody on the telly the other day saying Nicholas Nickleby was their favourite Dickens book. So I ought to stick with it, but it doesn't start well, And also, I've been asked in November. I've got to do a thing called Desert Island Books, where I've got to come up with 3 books that I would take to a desert island, and so I have been sort of sitting down, musing what the answer to that question is. And I think probably it won't be fiction, because what would be the point? You'd read it once and then you'd be on the desert island with only 2 books worth reading and one that you'd read it, and that was the story. So it's got to be non-fiction. So the only one that at the moment, I will come up with more, but the one at the moment, the only prize I ever won at school was for an accumulation of credits over 5 years. I won 1 book. That's how bright I was. And the one that I chose was a book called The Loom of Language. And I've always been fascinated by language and linguistics, and I did modern languages at school, and, I speak French and German, sort of not too bad. And I've always been fascinated by accents, particularly English accents and also American accents. Where did all those American accents come from? I'm always absolutely fascinated by that. And this book tells, it's the loom, it's the origin of European languages from Sanskrit and from Indo-European, and how they became the Germanic languages and the Latin-based languages, and how those two are in fact related, which, it's extraordinary to think that the Germanic languages and the Latin languages have a common root, which they do. And so how that all happens, I'm absolutely fascinated by that. And what's so great about, you live a life. I mean, we lived in London most of my life, and there we witnessed that change from if you're talking about if you're talking about a Londoner, if you're talking about Cockney, you've got this total change from an accent with history, with culture. It's Cockney, it's London, it's the real thing. It's not Essex, it's London, right? And now it's kind of become that, it's become MLE, it's become multicultural London English, which is completely different. But it's got, it's the same, whatever colour you are, whatever class you are, it's the same thing. And it's actually already coming into RP. You listen to the BBC now, and those those vowel sounds, why, all that stuff, it's creeping, and it will change within one generation. Even RP will change, and certainly, working class London has totally changed within one generation. I mean, you look back in the books and say, and this language came from this village in Lower Saxony, and the one next to it was different. You go, how on earth could that be? How could it have changed in such a short period of time? And here we are, actually witnessing that happen in front of our eyes. Some places don't, you think about it, and there's some places that stay with it, like Bristol, that hardly changes at all. Brummie, probably, I mean, it's changed a bit. It's television, that's the thing. It Eastenderization of everything, everything gets Scots doesn't really change at all, I don't think,
Yeah.
If you're from Glasgow, you're not going to suddenly sound like a Sassenach. That's not going to happen, mate. Pal. Yeah.
I think it was on an episode of QI where Stephen Fry talked about Australian questioning intonation.
Yeah.
And how at the end of a sentence now you go up as though you're asking a question, and you aren't. And that dates back to the early 90s, and that's entirely because of the popularity of Neighbours.
Ah. Okay,
because it was watched by about 15 million people an episode, and the accent started to work its way in. It's fascinating.
Well, you say that, mate, but I'm going to have to pull you apart on that one, because it's a little pet thing of mine. Up here in Norfolk, you've got a Norfolk accent, right? And the salient features of a Norfolk accent is that you have a long vowel sound, and you do have a rise in intonation. That's always been there. that people in Norfolk tend to go up at the end. Now, if you think about about London in the time of when they were sending them all, down to Australia, that Cockney accent was only one of many. And the thing is that the East Anglian, Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, and Kent, they had a similarity because they were these eastern languages which are non-rhotic. It hasn't got an R in it. Devon and Cornwall and all that are from an R. Mm-hmm. Norfolk don't have an R, and that accent probably would have been quite salient in London as well. There's no reason to think that it doesn't. Now, if you take those long vowel sounds and going up at the end, and then you close your mouth up against the floors, and you close your eyes up against the sun, you come up with Australian, and suddenly you're playing rugby and moaning about losing. That's where it comes from.
Wow.
That's my theory, and I want to try it out. If anybody's listening to this who is a linguist, who's a professor of linguistics, please let me know, because I can't see the flaw in that argument, but I've read lots, and nobody's said that. Nobody has come up with that as being where it comes from. But to me, to my ear, they're so similar. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Because we've talked before, haven't we, Al, about the way that the Liverpudlian accent has changed. What was it we talked about that a while ago, wasn't it? And how it's just over since the 60s that seems to have changed. If you listen to recordings of the Beatles being interviewed, there's so much more Lancashire than they would be Scouse.
Yeah. It's funny, Stephen, he loves his accents, doesn't it? Stephen Fry. He loves his accents, and he's very good at them too. We were just listening to him doing Sherlock Holmes, and whenever there's a chance of doing an accent, Stephen will be in there doing it, giving it the full welly.
Yes.
I love it. And then he's always got the thing where something's being narrated by someone, that he's telling a story, and he's a Scouser, and then he's telling a story and says this, this posh bloke comes in through the door and throws the door and says, "Hello, my good man." And he does that to the Scouse posh. He does go straight back into it. It's and because he can't resist giving it the full welly on every accent. It's a delight. I love his storytelling.
Yeah. Well, as we're talking about reading, that allows me to ask about the Archers, because obviously, with it being a radio show, the most wonderful thing is you don't have to learn the lines.
No, quite.
But what's the impact on you as a performer? The fact that you are there still reading the script, does that alter anything, particularly for you as a performer, as opposed to learning the lines would?
Well, it does. It does to a certain extent. It means that you don't, you're not being nervous like you are on stage. You're not nervous in front of a camera because, you can always go for take two. But it means that what I find liberating is that I do love improv. I love improvising. And to me, we've looked at the script before you get there. You do a read through, and then you're performing it. So sometimes it's only the third time you've actually seen that. Sometimes it's the first time. I've had occasions where we've been. They haven't sent me the script. I've been late there. The read-throughs happen. They go and they say, "Look, we haven't got time to rehearse it. Can you just do it?" And I've actually had to record it without having seen the script. It's literally sight reading it. And a classic case in point with one of those times, not happened very often, but once it was like that. And I was in this room. We're in a hospital. And it was me and Felicity Finch, who plays Ruth, and an actress who was just there for the day, who was playing a doctor. And we sat down, and I was reading the script like that, and she said, "I'm terribly sorry to have to tell you, Mrs. Archer, but you've got breast cancer." And I didn't know it was coming. And Flick was, doing, and I was trying not to cry. I mean, it was such a shock that there was no acting required at all. And it's in moments like that where you can invent, and it's not just that particular incident, but a lot where you've got a script in front of you and you just decide on that moment how you'd say it. And there was an old adage from a teacher at Bristol Vic Theatre School, Rudy Shelley, and one of his adages was, "Acting is the art of reacting." And that's all you have to do as an actor. It's almost all you have to know. Is you've got to listen to what the person has just said to you. And if it's theatre, they've said that to you, 25, 30 times before, and it's coming, but you've got to every single time listen to it as though that's the first time you've ever heard it, and then react. And you can react in any way you want. You've got the freedom Nobody's told you how to react. So you've got that freedom of reacting in any way you want. And so I find it actually, having the script in front of me, liberating, because you read ahead, you know what's coming. I do audiobooks, and you have to sight read, and you get good at it. You're reading ahead. You're not reading what you're seeing in front of you. You're kind of almost reading the next sentence because you looked ahead. And so you know what's coming, and then you can play with it, and you can muck about. And, also the great thing about the Archers is you're not totally bound by every single word. You don't have to get every word absolutely right. You can paraphrase, a bit, not too much, but because otherwise it throws the other actor if they don't get the right cue. Yes. But no, I love it. I have to say, I really love it. I love it.
Is that similar then? Because you were in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Not to say, because do they? Is it? Am I right that they record one that is the script and then one that allows you to play around the script and then they edit from the two or something like that?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, I mean, you get the script on day one. You come to a read through and you haven't been sent the script, so you sight reading that. And then Armando said, well, let's go over and we'll just play with that. But just leave the scripts behind, just leave them on the table. Just go over there and reproduce what you've just read for the first time. So it's kind of a rough approximation of it, but you're making it up.
Yeah.
And so there's Jesse Armstrong, who's sitting there in the corner quietly writing down the best bits that you come up with. And then about a week later, you get sent a script in the post, and then you learn that. So you learn that, and then you turn up for recording. And there's no lighting, there's no camera set up, it's just two handheld cameras that follow you around. And so they said, okay, so you go for it. And there's me and Peter Capaldi on day one. And Peter's going, have you learned it? And I said, yeah. He said, all this improv business, do you think you can do that? And I was going, I don't know, mate. I don't know. He said, oh, God, I'm terrified. And so all of that. Anyway, that nice person turns into, literally, on the word action, turns into Malcolm Tucker, who is the most scary person in the world. In the world. And I remember one bit where he said something about transport. I said, my line was, I know what fucking transport is. And somebody wrote on in Facebook somewhere, the first appearance of the Malcolm Tucker death stare. His eyes closed, and all the hatred of a Glaswegian working class boy for a fucking Ponce southerner came out in his face, scared me to death. So you do that maybe once or twice. And then Armando comes up to you and says, I've just written down some other lines you might want to put in here, and hands you a piece of paper with some other lines on it. And he does that to Capaldi as well, and say, other lines. So then you start the scene, and suddenly you're thrown a curveball, something you've never heard before. And as you quite rightly point out, acting is the art of reacting. You've got to react to that in the instant, in the moment. And that's what gives the thick of it this brilliant realism, this wonderful reality where people don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And aren't polished and aren't perfect, and the words are all over the place and everything. And it was a complete, I'd done the Armando Iannucci shows with him beforehand, and it was on the same principle. And I found myself, where I was the vicar where the entire congregation falls in love with him. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yes.
I mean, that was a case in point. I mean, I'm up in the pulpit, and he said, Tim, do you play the guitar? And I said, yeah. He said, well, we've got a guitar here. Would you like to play it? And I said, well, what do you want me to play? He said, well, don't do anything that's copyright. So I said, well, shall I sing one of the song that I've written? He said, yeah, sure, go for it. So, okay, turn over and action. So there's me playing this song that I'd written, which was all about it was called Quangos in the Shelter. It was all about after the nuclear war, which I never thought would ever get heard. But there it is. It's part of the Armando Iannucci shows, and it will be there forever, Yeah, that was the fun of it. That was such fun.
Yeah.
I remember reading an interview with Armando about the thick of it, where he said that Peter Capaldi wouldn't eat with the other actors when he was doing it because it made it too hard to be nasty to them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, the thing is that I didn't know that because I'm only in the first 15 minutes of episode 1. Because And he goes, bong, and he goes, the end of my scene, and then the thick of it, and that's where it starts. And then I came back for a summer special, and then there was one bit where I'm in the back of a taxi with another rabid Glaswegian. So I only had 2 minutes. But yeah, no, I didn't get that. I wasn't in the show for long enough to have that. At the time, Peter was just completely charming and lovely, as he is. And I can understand him. I can understand that not wanting to eat with people so that he could still be nasty to them. Makes sense.
Yeah, he comes across as a really nice guy, and he was too soft to just turn the hatred on. Apparently, he had to work, gear himself up to it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask an indulgent question, which I'm going to allow myself here, to do with reading, but it's to do with home recording, because I think The Archers was probably one of the only programs in production in the UK that wasn't completely scuppered by coronavirus. I think there was a 2-week gap in transmission, and then it was back on. But of course, when it came back, you were the first voice that was heard, and you had to carry that whole 12.5 minutes yourself, didn't you? And it was just a monologue.
It was a monologue, yeah. It was quite extraordinary. I mean, I was slightly ahead of the game because I got a little kind of recording set up at home, and in fact, I did very well. Awful to say, out of COVID, because lots of actors didn't, and so I was able to do a lot of voice work from home. But they sent out microphone, which is it's actually this microphone here, this very microphone. Here. They sent out to all the actors with a little kind of an acoustic cowl around the back of it, so that they could do it in their bedrooms. But yeah, the first one was me. Was it all the whole episode?
The whole thing was you. I remember it. I remember listening to it, and you were overlooking Lakey Hill. It was 12.5 minutes of you. That was all. Yeah, the whole thing.
Wow. It was an extraordinary thing to do, and I really applauded it. And I thought, what an adventurous idea to examine what's going on inside people's heads. And it was really difficult to keep that up, because the reality of that, I've actually written a radio play with that conceit in mind. And the thing is that the way that it was the contrast between what you think. You can have great fun with the recording close mic, you'd do it like that, too, very, very close to the mic, like that, is what you're thinking. And then you say it out loud. And of course, the contrast is, you're thinking, you stupid woman, how dare you? Yes, darling, of course, or it's the juxtaposition of the two that makes the comedy. Yeah. But the thing is that the way that our inner monologue works is so fast, it's so fast, and it's so jumbled, and it's so all over the place, that when what we had was essentially a soliloquy, which was, being on stage, talking to the audience about what my inner monologue is, which is perfectly valid, but it didn't have that kind of the reality of how one's own mind works, I think. And after a bit, I think everyone agreed that it was, and it wasn't just me that did it. Lots of people, got to do that. And good on us, good on them, good on the office, good on the writers for doing that, to see us through a situation where we weren't allowed to be in the room together. And then, having done that, they then managed to get it technically so that you could have me in my bedroom and Felicity in her bedroom talking to each other. And then they did with EQ and post-production and everything. They got it so that it would sound as though they were in the room together, but very difficult to do. And then, of course, after that, we then had to come into the studio, and we were all separated. So we were all on individual mics. We were all like 4 or 5 yards away from each other. And then the great thing about radio drama is that you're all around the same mic. So you're next to each other, and you have that interaction between everybody, and it's natural. And the moment you put people on a separate mics, it becomes kind of talking heads. And the whole thing about radio drama is its three-dimensionality, is that you can move away from the mic because you've got an entire recording studio which will accept that. If you're in the dead room with Acoustically Dead, you can walk away and you're walking towards it, and there's the tractor in the background, and there's this, it's 3D, it's 3D sound. And with COVID, it wasn't. It was 2D sound. It was people, clearly in front of a microphone, and that was difficult to do. But they did it, they did it. And rather than fold, which is what they easily could have done, we said, no, the Archers must go on. And I love you. It's like the war, let's go on. Do you know there's a war on? Do you know there's COVID on? Great. I was really proud of the program, of the writers and the office, the people, the editor, all the people putting it together. Well done,
Absolutely.
Top work.
Well, here we are in our third and final location with our guest president, Tim Bentinck, and we are ready for our third and final set of numbers, and they are
8, 1, 7.
817, 817, and that means that the final subject is satire and humour. Satire and humour. Oh, there's a wonderful tradition of satire in this country, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I remember when Drop the Dead Donkey finished, and it finished because Andy Hamilton said, and it was when New Labour had just come in, and he said there was no point doing it because we thought there's not going to be anything to satirise ever again. How wrong we were. But this wonderful tradition, I've recently had the opportunity to start a little bit of a rewatch of That Was the Week That Was.
Oh, wow.
My God, there's a show I wish someone would have the balls to do now.
They wouldn't be allowed to do it anymore, would they?
No, they really wouldn't.
Of course, we've just lost Tom Lehrer, thinking of That Was the Week That Was.
Yeah,
Who was on the American version. And there was a myth about him, and it wasn't true. But there was a myth that he had given up satirical songwriting when, what's his name? Nixon's right-hand man, the diplomat.
Kissinger?
Kissinger, when Henry Kissinger won the Nobel Peace Prize,
Oh, yeah.
Tom Lehrer supposedly gave up satire on the grounds that it was no longer possible to satirize the news.
Well, I mean, with Trump, it's pretty much impossible to satirize it because he did whatever you say that you think is absurd. He then comes up with it for real. Let's go down that little branch.
No. Is satire a particular form that you enjoy, Tim? So.
I absolutely do. I mean, I don't know whether there's a story that I was thinking about the other day. You remember the comic strip?
Mm.
I don't know whether that was satire or just comic sketches, but I remember my agent said, you're going up and it's a kind of comic strip like thing, and you're up to play a student terrorist. I thought, okay. So I turn up to this meeting and they're very nice and chatting and everything. And so I read my lines and everything. And I think it must have been Richardson.
Peter Richardson.
Peter Richardson. And it said, it's the usual kind of comic strip kind of thing. And I thought that they meant we're like the comic strip. Not that they were. So I said, yeah, I used to like that. I thought they'd gone off a bit recently, though. I said, in order to big them up, to go, you're probably better than they are. And they said, oh, right. Oh, okay. And they looked at each other and smiled. And I said, sorry, who are you guys? And they said, we're the comic strip. And I said, oh, God, I'm not getting this gig then, am I? And they laughed and we laughed. It was all very funny and everything. And anyway, they offered me the part and I couldn't do it because I had 4 Archers episodes that day. They just to come up with the one day when that month where I had some Archers episodes, so I couldn't do it. But therein lies a tale. I could have been part of that whole, that gang. It's one of those, just missed out on that one again moments. It was difficult. But, I mean, satire. When was the last satire? Was Python satire? I don't know. What was the last real satire program that you could? I mean, that was. What was it after that? I can't think.
Python. You'd only really say The Life of Brian was satire.
Yeah.
Some of the individual sketches may have been, but like the mouse sketch. But
yeah.
A lot of it's just absurdism, isn't it?
It is. I suppose the problem that you have was, well, I mean, obviously That Was the Week That Was so successful, but the BBC weren't keen on that success, and it's an unusual thing, but they tried to constrain it. They bought a series which was The Third Man, which was a film series from America. And it was put on after TW3 because TW3 kept overrunning. But it was the last thing on of an evening so they would just go as long as they wanted. So it was like, okay, we've got to constrain them. We've got to try and pull them in. So in the Radio Times, there it is, 11 o'clock, The Third Man. You've got to be off air by then. So the way they coped with it was David Frost would get on to Prez and he'd get hold of a detailed rundown of what was going to happen, and he would spoil the episode that was coming up, so nobody watched it. And so they gave up in the end, and they said, "I'll just keep going. It's absolutely fine."
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, I think in the end, because they were coming up to a general election in '64, and that was the reason given for taking TW3 off. Because it could have swayed people. So,
Well, a spitting image, isn't there? Yeah, that's made a comeback.
Did a couple of series recently. I don't know if it's still going, but yes, it was revamped for a while.
yeah. But in terms of current satire, I mean, Private Eye is still in print. Fiercely independent. But I don't know. Maybe it's true what Andy Hamilton said 30 odd years ago, which is now there is. It's not that there's nothing to satirize, but as you said, Tim, things are so ridiculous. How do you satirize things when they are as ridiculous as they are? I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. The idea of a kind of a very straight, pompous, stuffy old conservative doing Ted Heath, and you could take the mickey out of him. But when you've got somebody who already is a parody of themselves, Boris was a parody of himself to start off with, wasn't he? I mean, there was, doing Boris Johnson impressions, you go, yeah, that's him.
Yes.
And the rest.
Yeah, it's something that I've always I was brought up listening to Peter Cook and Dudley Moore.
Oh God, yes.
That's how I got into Private Eye, and
Right.
Peter Cook's ability to just use language to satirize things. There's the wonderful Judge's Summing Up, which was to do with Norman St. John Scott, I think. And that was where Peter Cook came up with the phrase, a self-confessed player of the pink oboe. Wonderful phrase.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, you missed. It's either Norman St. John Stevens or Norman Scott. It's Norman Scott.
Norman Scott.
Who was chewing the pillow.
That's it.
That one, yeah.
Yes, that's it, yeah. But,
Really?
yeah, I don't... I mean, there's a man who had the ability to just satirize off the top of his head, which is something similar to Tony, our lovely Tony had as well, who got into everything through Peter Cook.
Yeah.
And
I had the great pleasure of working with Mike McShane a few years ago.
Oh, he's lovely.
Yeah, when we did a play called Brexit at the Edinburgh Festival, something like, must have been about 5 or 6 years ago now. And I played the Prime Minister, and all the rest of the cast were stand-up comedians who I'd never really worked with stand-up comedians before. And they're a lovely bunch. And it's different from the actors vibe. They're a different lot. And what I was loved about it was they weren't trying to out-funny each other, in the dressing room and beforehand. It wasn't competitive at all. It was very, very warm and helpful. And Mike McShane, I just adored him because I always thought he was a god, from Whose Line Is It Anyway, and with Tony and all the rest. I mean, I loved it. Wouldn't miss an episode of that. And then I was working with Mike McShane, He was so cool. It was great. Yeah, I loved it. I really loved it. I mean, the fact that we're having to think to ourselves, what is satire? It's kind of proof of the pudding, isn't it? Is that it doesn't really happen anymore. We have to go back quite a way, and we're older gentlemen, and we can think back to a past where satire was all the time, and it isn't. I mean, is there any satire now at all? I mean, certainly not on the BBC. I don't think, is there, or ITV or. Maybe it's must be on YouTube. It must be there.
yeah, I mean, you've still got Have I Got News for You battle.
Well, you have,
I
that's
suppose,
true.
yeah. But no, aside from that, I can't think of anything that is still going on. Of course, it used to be. There was so much.
Yeah.
Quite big still in America, isn't it? Because you still have the late night show hosts who tend to do, you'll have the satirical monologues that start from the likes of Jimmy Fallon and, can't think of his, the guy who looks like a tombstone.
Kemmel.
Yes, him. Yeah. And John Oliver, who's one of ours, of course.
He's
Yeah, Last Week Tonight.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
cut his teeth over here with Andy Zaltzman.
Yeah. That's true. You'd have thought, I mean, if they can do that in America, why can't we do that here? It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
There's not the market for it anymore. I don't know.
Well, here we are, back in the shed. Our rambles, for now, are ended. And Tim Bentinck, it has been, I think I've outed myself as an Archers fan completely. However, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for rambling with us.
Thank you. It's been really great fun. Thank you so much, and lovely to meet you. And lovely.
Oh, Yes, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you so much for that. And of course, thank you to everyone at home for listening. And we really hope that you enjoyed this week's meeting of the Rambling Club.
As you know, the club meets every Friday, but if you'd like to get in touch with your fellow members in the meantime, here's how you can find them.
The show's official website is at www.tonyslattery.com, and you can get in touch with us on the contact form on that website.
We're at Twitter at Slattery Live. Please feel free to use the hashtag TSLC to discuss any of this week's topics.
I'm still loitering on the burning remnants of Twitter too, at Paul Carmichael V, but you can find me on Blue Sky, Paul Carmichael UK, and you can find Rambling Club on Blue Sky as well.
And Tony also has a clanking, creaking, rusted old Facebook group from the bottom of the shed pile. That's at www.facebook.com/group/TheTonySlattery.
And he's on Instagram as well, at Tony_Slattery_official.
And if people want to join the Rambling Club for themselves, Paul, how do they do that?
Well, what they can do, Al, is they can head over to www.patreon.com/Slattery Live. The club is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we'd be delighted to welcome you. As a member, you get your club badges and your membership card. There's also photographs that you can see of our lovely Tony there. You get an exclusive podcast twice a month, which is myself, Alan, and Mark Hutchinson, Tony's partner. So head over to www.patreon.com/Slattery Live and have a look.
And if people want to find this week's guest president, Tim Bentinck, on social media, how would they go about doing that, Tim?
I am at Tim Bentinck, which is TIMBENTINCK, on all of them, on all social media. It's the same handle.
So, if you would like to get in touch with us by any of those methods, please do, and we'd be delighted to hear from you.
We certainly would. And while you're on the internet, why not head over to wherever you get your gibberish, head to the podcast page and leave us a lovely little review, or 5 stars if you've enjoyed listening to us talk to Tim Bentinck about reading and the use of other information media. That would be an ideal way to leave us a little donation, which would make our spines straighten as we held our heads up about time.
That's very good, that one. And we will be back for another ramble next Friday at 5 to 5, and we hope that you'll join us again. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from myself, Paul Carmichael. It's a goodbye from my colleague, Mr. Alan Lear.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from our guest president this week. Thank you so much, Tim Bentinck.
Goodbye!
You have been listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club with our special guest president, Tim Bentinck. He was accompanied by Stephen Fry as the voice of the bingo machine. Acting President Bentinck was assisted by Paul Carmichael and Alan Lear. The music was composed and performed by Mike Livesley and Andy Fritzel. Silly voice are by Mike Livesley and the show's concept is by Paul Carmichael. Our producers are Stuart Morris and Alan Dybing, and the show's researcher is Soula Carmichael. The show's producers are Erika Lear and Mark Hutchinson, and the program was edited by Harry Carmichael. Our series executive producer is Mark Strickson. Tony Slattery's Rambling Club is a Fanfanitel production.
Goodbye, and thank you for listening.